everybody, and welcome back to Apple Cottage. This is Sandy and I am Suburban Homesteader, Wyoming. Welcome to YouTube. And as you see, I have my hat back on. It has been so nice, and today, oh, so cold. And in fact, at 39 degrees, it started snowing. Huge, beautiful flakes, but still snowing. So I worked for a few hours this morning in my gardens, and I moved apple trees, and I did poo patrol, and I planted potatoes. So I'm going to show you a clip of the potatoes. And I had this whole great big list to do today because it was supposed to be in the 40s. Though it would be cool, it wouldn't be so bad, but it's just, the snow has finally stopped when I just looked out of the window. And now it's more rain. And we're supposed to have that, I guess, now for about until mid-afternoon. So that's gardening in Wyoming, of course. But I'm going to go out and I'm going to show you how I did my potatoes. And I'm going to give you the reasons why I did my potatoes that way. I'm going to show you some of my raised beds. And some have things growing in them. Some don't yet. But in Wyoming, you have to be very careful when you plant yours, because it can snow. Now at 39 degrees, it really shouldn't have snowed, but it did. Huge flakes, lots of snow, but it kept melting as it hit the ground. So we'll probably just have drizzle rain for the rest of the day, but my list will be put off till tomorrow for my things outside. The things in the greenhouse are growing well. I'm going to put a little clip of that in here. And I just wanted to say hi. We've been so busy working on our fence, and we're about halfway around our property, which our property in town is about almost 14,000 square feet. And so it's a lot of fencing to put up. But with Joe's schedule of work, because he's not all the way retired yet, we do it when we can. And so I'm going to do a little walk around and show you some things that we're doing, and hopefully by this weekend it'll be warmed up again, and I will see you then. So I also wanted to tell you the craziest thing that happened last night. The wind was really blowing. I mean, not a little bit, it was really blowing. And this morning when I got up, I was in the gardens, and one of my big apple trees, in some of the top branches. Now, my big apple trees are only 12 feet, 15 feet high, because I don't let them get bigger than that. But the umbrella from the opposite side of the house had somehow come undone from the heavy base, and it had flown over the house and landed like a spear in that apple tree. And I don't know how this happened, but not one single branch was broken on that apple tree. It was like it just was an arrow that went straight through there. And I'm in the garden, and I look at that apple tree, and I thought, what the heck? And I had to carefully pull the umbrella out of it, but it hadn't broken anything. And I don't know how long it had spun around in the air. I mean, because it's not little, it is a big umbrella. And somehow it had got untied, because I always tie them up so that they're not flopping all over in the wind. And it had got loose from that base, and that base is heavy, and flew over the house like Mary Poppins and landed in my apple tree. But nothing. I looked all over to see if it had damaged things as it went whirling around, and I couldn't find anything. I thought, it's a miracle. But those are fun things in Wyoming. Container that I have my potatoes that I did today, and I did put a little blanket over top so that you can see some of the potatoes. But it's basically, other than the soil that the potatoes grew in the pot, everything else is just straw that I've had sitting out. So there's 6 containers in here, and I'm just putting that blanket on there just to keep it a little warmer. I think I might do some painting of this white box this summer. Put some honeybees or something on there. And then you can see that this pear tree is just barely starting to open. It'll be another week and a half or more before these ones open up. So there's a few of them that are a little bit farther along. So why do I put the potatoes in a box like that? Now I have used great big tubs and that's worked. But that great big white box is actually something that I had for as a cold frame. It's really lightweight, and so I'm planting those potatoes in there, putting the straw around it, and so at the end of the season I'll be able to literally just lift that box up and then just work my way through the straw to get all the potatoes. So that's the reason why I'm trying it this year. And I've done different things like the 4x4 box, and you add the planks, and I think this just might work a little bit easier and a little bit better. So a few of my things have just started to come up that I planted the other day. And I got a little drip there, condensation. But you can see the French broccolis are up. The beans and the cucumbers aren't up, except for you can see right there. It's just about to come up through the soil. But the rest of them, of these newest ones that I planted, they're just resting right now, just starting. But you can see that the pumpkins are starting to come up. So in a day or two, all of them will be up. I haven't planted any of my newly grafted apple trees from this year. But you can see there's some growth down on the rootstock. And what I do is I just break that off because I don't want that energy going there. I want the energy going up where it's grafted and into the scion. It's just a process though. But I won't plant these ones into the ground or into the nursery beds probably for another couple weeks. In here, these plants are actually seeds for oranges. But it's a rootstock orange. And what it does is I can graft other orange trees onto it. But this rootstock right here is actually hardy all the way up to the Canadian border. And so I'm going to just do some testing on how I can do some oranges outside. Castor beans. Now, castor beans are a poisonous plant, but they are a beautiful plant. And so I got a couple of them growing, and I just grow them just because I like what they look like. You know, I have them in a place that the dogs aren't around, kids aren't around, and I just get to enjoy them. But you can see celery's coming up, rhubarb, peppers, lots of new tomatoes coming up that I just planted the other day. Some of the other ones are getting pretty big, and all these peppers I need to repot, but I don't want to do it today because it's a little chilly out. And then the other melons that I planted the other day, they're not up yet, but it's just a process. But I got some toothache plants coming up and some basils coming up, chamomile. This is just really some different herbs, and that's called catgrass, black mustard. So I have to separate all those. There's a few little more flowers coming up. It stays pretty warm in here because I have heat lamps, and so that's kind of fun. And then I planted a whole bunch of new stuff. But some of the pak choi is coming up, so that's something I will separate. And one of the other things that's starting to come up is some corn plants. A couple of them are up. Now the fun thing about these, the leaves are actually striped. They're variegated. And so that's the reason I'm planting it. And the corn is actually black colored, kind of a blackish purple. But the rest of these ones, not coming up yet, but just a process still. But it's nice and warm in the hoop house where it is cold outside. So I guess I gotta go weather the storm. Rhubarb doesn't care at all when it gets colder. Now, if it frosted hard or really snowed, I wouldn't use those leaves. I would cut those off and let the new ones grow in there. But tulips, rhubarb, it's all coming along. Got a lot of tulips down here that are about to bloom. And up on the food forest, there's lots of them blooming. And the daffodils too. Rhubarb's getting bigger every day. One of my pear trees. And as you can see, in a few days, those flowers are going to open up. I have a Bartlett and a Kiefer, these two pear trees right here. Fabulous pears. The apples are on their way. It'll be probably a week or so before those flower. But as you can see, some of the raised beds have stuff in them, some of them don't. But it's just a process. And we're going to go down here. I added some garlic and chive plants here. And the front of our fence, we wanted the nice part showing. But we've got the gates, the gate up and stuff like that. And then it switches to where it goes that the planks are in the front so that we get to enjoy them. And that's the apple tree that had the umbrella in it. Just a little update on the hydroponics. I've actually been harvesting this bib lettuce. Some cabbage, mustard, spinaches, tomatoes, basils, etc. Actually even have some apple trees in there growing well. Cucumbers, different lettuces, and some little trees I took cuttings from. These are called OP367s. And in the spring, if you cut some of the suckers off from the bottom, so easy to root. So I'm going to plant those outside.